Welcome to the Creative Warriors Podcast, the female heart and soul of photography. We are back with Angie I'm going to do it again. What is wrong with
you? You can do it.
McMonigal?
Yes.
Woo. Jeez. I got to work on my names.
It's okay. Everybody says McGonagall. Like almost nobody pronounces it correctly. So you're all right.
Yeah. It's like something is stuck in my head when I go to say your name and I know it's wrong. So I don't want to say it. Okay. So this episode, we're going to talk about the inner wars, inner voices, overcoming some of those interior pressures and sometimes exterior. So the first thing I want to ask you is, can you describe a time when self-doubt has held you back from your work?
I mean, self-doubt creeps in all the time. I don't think it ever goes away. Especially if you're growing and trying new things. I think there was a moment. So when I shifted from like the portrait work to the architecture work, like I knew I wanted this to be something more than just a hobby. Like I wanted this to like move in the direction of, I guess, a career or, something like that. And I felt like at that point, I wasn't doing any commercial work. Like everything was still abstract. And I had in my mind that the way to do that was to get repped by a gallery. And to get repped by a gallery, you need a project and you need to have a clear vision and you need a style. And I just felt paralyzed. I'm like, I have none of these things. I don't know what I like to photograph. I don't have a style. I don't have any good ideas for a project. I'm a failure. You just like feel like I suck. Nobody's going to rep me, like blah, 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 all of these things. And it's like, I didn't know what I was doing and I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I think at that time, I had this idea that projects come about in one way, and that is you have an idea and you go photograph it. It took me a few years, after these thoughts in like 2011, 10 years after I'd been shooting and still didn't know what I was doing. That isn't always how you come about a project. That isn't always how you come about discovering your vision or your style. Sometimes it is coming to those realizations through analysis of your work over a long period of time. And I started looking at my body of work, all of my images. And I remember going through and just like pulling favorites. Like, I really like these images. I didn't try to put them in a category. I didn't try to make sense of it. I'm just like, okay, let me like dump these in a folder. And this is like what I like. And from there, it was trying to distill where the connections were. Like, why do I like all of these? How do they fit together? What is the cohesiveness between one shot to the next? And in that, it was the realization that you can come about a project through different means. Like, you don't have to have that idea first. You don't have to, have it all figured out. Like it can be a slower process. And that's just how it's been for me. I think I've only ever created one project where I had an idea first, as opposed to this realization that things fit together in a certain way and that maybe this is going in one direction. And now I can be more intentional about it and create for that project because I've already made some of the work and I see a pattern and I see this idea here. So, it was that point where it was like leaving the portrait stuff behind, but not yet knowing what I wanted to do, where I just, you feel like a fraud and you feel like a failure and you're just like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I want to do. I don't know who my audience is. I don't even know what I like to photograph. Like, great. What do I do with this? So it sucked. It sucked for a couple of years trying to figure that out. But eventually you keep shooting and you put the work in and you start to make sense of things. Some people are quicker at that than I am. It took me 11 years. But
see, I'm learning that there's a pattern in that, and that's good. But I don't think it's an easy field to navigate because there are so many directions, and we get a lot of. I'm not going to say it's misinformation. It's just different. But ultimately, knowing what you want to do with the work could go 12 directions, and sometimes the world has another answer for you that you just haven't discovered. You might be good at architecture and you didn't know it, and you're out shooting people, as you've experienced. But so I think it's a hard path to start with. And I don't think there's a lot of resources that help make it easier from my perspective.
I completely agree. Look, it's not like the track to be a doctor or a lawyer where, you go get your undergrad in biology, you go to med school, you do your internship, blah, 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 whatever. There's a very systematic path in terms of how you get from point A to point B. If you talk to any photographer, they're all over the place, like zigzagging. Some people went to photography school. Some people have never set foot in a photo class ever. It doesn't make sense. Like there's no path and everybody has their own way of getting there. And you're right. Like me thinking like, oh, the gallery is like, that's where I need to be. Like, that's my home. Like, that's what makes me legitimate. That's what makes me a real artist. And believe me, I tried. Like I have been in tons of shows. I've never been repped by a gallery. I've made peace with this. It's not where my work fits for the most part. The whole art consultant thing, you said something comes out of nowhere. I had no idea what that was. That's where that work fits most for me. Like, yes, I've been in gallery shows. I've exhibited quite a bit. But I haven't had like full on representation. And I've just kind of realized that I'm okay with that at this point. But it took me a really, really long time to get okay with it because in my mind, that was the only way that made you legit. Like, that's the only way I'm a real photographer is if a gallery reps me. I'm not like a photographer. That doesn't happen. Not true. Like there's so many different ways to do this. And, you just don't know where it's going to go. And I think you have to be open and just like keep making the work and make what you love. Because like, if you're doing the work to please somebody else or to fit in this group, to fit in the gallery world, to fit in the museum world, to fit in whatever little world you think you should be in, you're constantly changing to fit trends. And I think you lose yourself in that. And when you're not like true to who you are and the way that you see things, you don't develop a style and you don't develop a vision. So I think you just have to go with what you love. And eventually, hopefully, people feel it. Like they feel your energy, they feel your excitement, they feel your passion for it. And that's when people want to be part of whatever it is you're creating. There's no path and there's no right or wrong beyond, I think, make what you love and who cares what other people think or say. Like, be open to constructive criticism, but at the end of the day, like know your own voice.
Yeah. I know this has never happened to you. By your work, I know you have never submitted and been rejected ever.
Sure.
How do you deal with those moments when you got this project, you think it's like really ready, you submit it and it just doesn't fit with whatever they were looking for. So how do you deal with that inside?
I'm probably better at it now than I used to be. Like you take it, it's hard to not take it personally. At least I don't so much anymore. Like I've realized and having juried some things and being on the other side of it to some extent, it's so much of it's subjective, honestly. And it's what is in trend right now in terms of what's going on with photography. And maybe it's just not what they're looking at, but yeah, you do take it personally to some extent. You have those, like, even if it's short and fleeting at this point, you do get these moments of like disappointment and deflation and like, God, I suck. Like, why am I even bothering? Why did I submit? Why did that get in and mine didn't get in? Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I should just quit. Like, you run through the gamut.
Sound like you're in my head.
Yeah, it's just like, you go through this like phase of self-loathing and hatred, and you eventually come out of it and you're like, oh, well, never mind. It's fine. Like I go through phases where I'll have years where I submit a lot, and then I have years where I don't submit at all. Like I just get sick of the game. Like it feels like a game, or what it starts to feel like, or the process, but then you're like, oh, maybe I should submit. And then you win something or you get accepted to something, and like the ego boost is great. But you have to remember that neither defines you. The like, oh, you got in, yay you. But tomorrow I'm going to get rejected from something else. I don't know. It's just,
I like what you said. It doesn't define you. Upgrade your experience with our premium subscription. Enjoy exclusive features, enhanced content, and seamless extended interviews. Elevate your enjoyment and personal growth with our premium subscription today. If you enjoy the Creative Warrior podcast, the female heart and soul of photography, please like, subscribe, share, and comment. Thank you. I like that. That's a very strong statement. That their opinion did not define who you are. That's a good statement.
I mean, I like took a workshop a long time ago, and they had like an image review, and I submitted an image, and they didn't like it, like at all. Like had lots of criticisms. And then a week later, some other photographer whose work I adore, it's like, oh, I love this image of yours. Same image that just got, who'd on a week earlier. So it's like, in that moment, I think that was like a defining moment for me. I'm like, you know what? I don't care what any of you think. I quit. I quit caring about what you all think. I'm going to make what I like. And if it resonates with you, fantastic. If not, okay. Like, I kind of just don't care. Like people will get so worked up over their insights on Instagram or like social media. And like, oh my God, nobody's looking at my image, or I hardly had any likes. Look, who doesn't like the likes? Like who doesn't like the like comments and nice things and all of that? Sure, I do too. But at the same time, I don't know that I've ever looked at my insights on Instagram. I do not care. If you like it, fantastic. I hope you do. But at the same time, I like it. Like I'm good with it. And, I think most photographers have this feeling where the image they most like gets the least traction in terms of like likely. And then there's images that I'm like, I almost didn't post that because I think it's garbage. And I'm like, what? Why?
I know. It always amazes me.
So I think I'm also a very poor judge of my own work. So whatever. You put it out there. If it resonates, it resonates. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
I think that's why they're in an art museum. There's so many different wings.
Yeah.
Because there's just different things resonate with different people.
Absolutely.
And that's okay.
And it's like, maybe you're not on trend right now. Things come and go in terms of trendiness and interest to the general public. And maybe what you're doing isn't really there, but maybe it will be in 5 years. It doesn't mean you should shift.
Sometimes when you look at some of the stuff that is trending, you're like, I don't want to be that.
No, and you shouldn't. If it's not if it's trendy and it's something that you love as well, then by all means go for it. But if you're doing it to just jump on a bandwagon, people are going to feel it eventually, and they're going to realize that it's disingenuous. I just think you have to be true to who you are and what it is that you like and you love, and eventually your people will find you. I don't know. It sounds maybe Pollyanna, but
I think there's great wisdom in that. What about you talked about this in an earlier episode, but I call them creative blockers, or the moments when you feel stuck. I think creativity is an energy flow, and sometimes we're high and sometimes we're low. So if you can share again some of the things that you do when you feel just you don't have the energy, and what are some of the things you use to feed yourself so that creative energy comes back?
Honestly, typically I step away from shooting because we all get burnout, or, you said creative blocks, whatever you want to call it. For me, I think taking a break, and whether that's like going for a run, working out, going for a walk, there is something about being outside, being in nature, that is kind of cleansing.
Absolutely.
And when your mind is free from like being in the act of creating, I really do think that in those moments when I'm doing those other things, I weirdly start connecting my work to other things. I start making more sense of like kind of what I want to do or what I want to say. So I mean that's one way. Or I'll read more, like whether it's a novel that has nothing to do with photography, or I read books that are about like the creative process or art, or look at like I have a million coffee table books, whether that's of photographers' work or architects. Like, look, I'm even beyond like photography, which I love, and that's how I first got into this. Like, I do love architecture. So I think understanding the thing that you photograph, and how those types of creatives approach their work is helpful. I think it's interesting. It's something I want to do outside of the fact that this is what I photograph. Like, I like it. I think it's interesting. Like, I'll watch documentaries about this kind of stuff. I'll read books, like read articles. But then also just like getting away from anything that is work related and seeing movies, going to live music, going to museums and just wandering around different types of art that have nothing to do with photography, or also looking at the photography wing and seeing what they're displaying at any given time. I like creative stuff. Like, I like the arts. So I go to a lot of that kind of stuff. Like, I go see live music a lot. I go to movies a lot. I go to museums a lot. I go to theater stuff a lot. Because I like it, but I also think seeing other creatives doing their thing at a high level in a way that they get excited about, somehow, I don't know how, but I think subconsciously affects your creative process as well. Sometimes you can make those connections. Sometimes you don't. They just are there. I probably only had a couple of moments where I connected another art form to what I've done, or made sense where they kind of came together. But I do think those things influence you. And I think for me, that's just how I kind of like refresh or try to get re-inspired, or, take a break and live life.
It's like feeding yourself creative energy or ideas. So then when you have more to pull from, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like, the more experiences you're open to, the more things you're willing to try and do and see. And, the more that you're able to like pull bits and pieces from all of these things into how you create. Whether you understand how that's happening or not, I think doesn't even matter. But I think being open and curious is highly important to creative people.
Yes, it is actually. A quick question before we end this episode, but I know you obviously do abstract architecture. Have you ever taken your abstract concept and applied them to nature, to more object photography? Have you ever done work that's kind of similar but in a different direction?
Yeah. So, I don't post it very often, but like if I'm on vacation, a number of years ago, I went on like a long vacation and was at a bunch of national parks, like Great Sand Dunes National Park, White Sand, things like that. So I'll still shoot, with my real camera, but I don't shoot like the wide vista landscapes. Like, that's the equivalent of shooting a cityscape, which I don't really do. I don't really find interesting. Or I'm just too lazy to like watch the weather so closely to get there when the light matters enough. So anyway, when I'm in those spaces, yeah, I'm creating abstracts of the ripples in the sand, or the waves at the ocean, or the clouds in the sky. Like, I do that stuff all the time. Like, even with my phone, if I'm out walking, like I love clouds. So if I'm out walking and I'm always like, oh my God, look at those great clouds. I'll take pictures of that, or reflections of the fall leaves on the river. Like it always still ends up being abstract. There's something about abstraction that personally I just love. I love that it's open to interpretation. I love that I might see one thing and you might see something completely different. I think that's why I'm drawn to it, that it's not so black and white. It's not so clear. And I think any good photography, and this doesn't have to be abstraction, makes someone think or feel, and what you think or feel versus what I think or feel from the very same image can be vastly different. And I think that makes any art form interesting. You know, I just saw a movie with someone and we had very different takeaways from it. But that's because of your life experiences. You think of it differently. You connect to different things, and it might connect with me, but it might not connect with them, or vice versa. And yeah, I think it's, yeah, I shoot other things. I just don't post them very often.
Okay. That was more of a curiosity question, just because I know, you as a photographer, you tend to, most of us, at least from my experience, dabble in different things. It's just not what's shared publicly.
Yeah, just because when you're working, this is a career and you're making money in it, and I know not everybody agrees with this. I think being cohesive and where people are like, oh, I know that that's what that person does. Like they're great at architecture, abstracts. They might do these other things, but I don't need to know about that. Like it can confuse people. I think it's like, wait, what? Now you're doing nature? I don't understand.
Is that a reflection? What?
Yeah. So it's just, I don't know. Like sometimes I'll share it. Like I'll share it in, say, Instagram stories somewhere where it's not like, it's not in my portfolio. Yeah. It's still part of me, but it's not like how I'm defining my, I guess, brand, which feels weird to say, but you know what I mean.
I do know what you mean. Okay, we're going to wrap up this episode, and we're going to come back again with a conclusion with Angie. And we are going to talk about, I call it the mindful heart and the mindful eye. So we'll come back and see what Angie has to say about that.
Hi, Angie McMonigal here. If you'd like to learn more about teaching opportunities with me, you can check out my website. There's a free ebook you can download that goes over some of the composition and ways to photograph. It'll also get you signed up for the newsletter. So if you're ever interested in workshops, you'll be the first to know and get those discount codes for workshops. I also have some webinars I've done in the past that are available on the website, and I am available for private mentoring or photo walks. So just send me an email and we can get it figured out.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of The Creative Warriors. We want to thank Angie McMonigal for sharing her heart and her soul with us. We hope you enjoyed our fun conversation and gained some valuable takeaways. In our next episode, get ready to learn more with Angie. Remember to subscribe or follow The Creative Warriors on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. If you have any thoughts, suggestions, or questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me at arielfaithphotography.com. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep the conversation going. Stay curious and have a happy artistic journey. Thank you for listening to the Creative Warriors podcast, the female heart and soul of photography. See you next episode.